So in this video I'm going to look at the performances of South Africa, Ireland and New Zealand over the weekend in the Autumn International Series and do a bit of a comparison and also ask you for your opinions. So of course Ireland played against Fiji at the Aviva Stadium in Dublin. Wales played against South Africa at the Principality Stadium in Cardiff. And New Zealand went to a very chilly and cold Turin in Italy to take on Gonzalo Quesada's team in Italy. And it was a very interesting 3 games. So first of all, let's have a look at the final scores of each of those games. And first up was Ireland against Fiji. And the final score in that game was Ireland 52, Fiji 17. The game against South Africa and Wales, South Africa won that game 45 points to 12. And the game in Italy was won by New Zealand by 29 points to 11. Now, another interesting fact of those 3 games was looking at the scores at half-time. If we have a look at the Ireland versus Fiji game at half-time, Ireland were ahead 28 points to 3. In the South Africa game versus Wales, South Africa were leading 26-5 at half-time. And in Turin, New Zealand were ahead of Italy by 17 points to 6. So some interesting scores there at half-time. Now I always take note of the half-time score because it's always fascinating for me to see how teams finish off games and how good they are in the second half. And here's an interesting fun fact for you. This year in the Six Nations competition, the team that led at half-time, they won the game 93% of the time. So having a lead at half-time is a big thing in international rugby. So let's have a look at how the 3 teams started each of their games. And of course in the Ireland game there was a lot of hype around Sam Prendergast starting off and number 10, the young player, come in and of course for his first start in the Ireland jersey, and there's a lot of eyes on him and a lot of build up during the week to him in this particular game. Well, it didn't start off too well for Sam Prendergast. In the 8th minute he did a very stupid thing where he knocked the head of a Fijian player with his shoulder. Quite rightly he got yellow carded, and to many people across the rugby world since the incident, they're very amazed, including myself, why he didn't get upgraded to a red card. There was a no arms tackle. He went in leading with his shoulder. He hit the head of the Fijian player. It was very dangerous. The Fijian player was down for a bit, and it was a very silly act on behalf of Sam Prendergast. So his debut at starting for number 10 for the Irish didn't go off too well. Now all Ireland had to do in the beginning of this game was keep their structure, keep their composure, and Fiji were going to make the mistakes and give them penalties, and that's exactly what happened in the first half. We saw good tries to Ireland from Van der Flair, Casey and also Hansen, and it was only a matter of time that Ireland were really going to run away with this game. I've been watching Fijian rugby now for over 40 years, and the consistent problem is discipline. And in the game of sevens they're so brilliant because it only lasts for 14 minutes, but in an 80-minute game they have all kinds of problems keeping their emotions in check and also their technical accuracy, and it cost Fiji hugely again in this game. But I thought this was an interesting start for Ireland. The more that Prendergast got back into the game, when he did come back on the field, he started orchestrating a good Irish team around the field, and they started building more and more, and they got control of this game very early on again. Now at the Principality Stadium between Wales and South Africa, it was a very interesting start to this game. I think South Africa had probably their best first 20 minutes of any game I've seen them play this season. They were absolutely brilliant. They were focused, they were disciplined, they were accurate with what they were doing, and we were seeing huge performances from their forwards, and it seemed to be the day of the locks because we saw tries to Franco Mostert and we saw a try to Eben Etzebeth early on in this game. But it didn't matter what South Africa did in the first part of this game. They were really on point. They started very well, and I think that's another thing that Rassie's been trying to get them to do, is make sure they start games very strongly. They were also playing an expansive game. Of course they had Ardensa and Colby on the wings in this game, and Fassi was doing some really good connections from fullback, and South Africa just looked really on point. So they put Wales under a lot of pressure, and every time that Wales got the ball, the South African defence was up on them, and they just started with a lot of intensity, and it was putting Wales under an enormous amount of pressure, and Wales just weren't able to handle it. One of the concerns I had with the Welsh selection in this game was Sam Costello at number 10. He got found out pretty early in this game as South Africa targeted him. He ended up going off with an HIA. And so of the 4 tries that South Africa scored in the first half, 3 of them went to forwards. Elgar Lowe got one as well. And Kurtley Ardenser got one for the backs, a very, very good one indeed. Ardenser, a fantastic finisher, of course, in the Springboks team. So by half time, South Africa were dominating this game. And for me, the only thing that was really left to watch in this game was to see whether or not the South Africans, could keep up the intensity and what impact their bench was going to have on this game. What we've seen often when the South African bench comes on is a little bit of disconnection and they fall away in their rhythms and their timings. Was that going to happen in this game? Well, we had to wait and find out. So over in Turin, and how did the All Blacks and Italy start off? Well, it was a pretty scrappy game from the start, and I think this was the strategy from Gonzalo Quesada's team. They wanted to unsettle the All Blacks and not give them any flow and rhythm into this game, and that's why we saw in the early stages of the game the All Blacks having a lot of trouble finding their rhythm and combinations, because Italy were just playing that confusing type of rugby. They were also ticking over the scoreboard when they could, and there was no surprise that they got a couple of penalties early on in the game. The All Blacks could also only trade that. It took the All Blacks 23 minutes in the first half to get a try in this game, and it came the way of Cam Roigard once again doing a little bit of individual brilliance. And that's what I think is one of the problems with this All Black team. They're too reliant on one player just showing a little bit of brilliance, whereas their coordinations, particularly in their backline, are not working to score a lot of tries. So it was 10-6 to the All Blacks. That's all it was, with a couple of minutes to go before half time, and everybody was hoping that Italy was going to be able to hold out until half time so we could have a great match of this. But the All Blacks got in for a try. Will Jordan, again, another brilliant effort from him, getting in to score a try. And if you didn't know, Will Jordan's had his worst year of scoring tries in an All Black jersey since he's gone to fullback. Yes, as I've been saying, I prefer him on the wing. He's scored more tries for the All Blacks on the wing. So do you want to see him at fullback just because everybody wants to see him at fullback, or do you want to see him on the wing scoring tries and getting points for the All Blacks? There's a question for you all. But he did score a try just before half time. It was converted, and the All Blacks went out to 17 points to 6 and had a little bit of breathing space, but they didn't look good in that first half. And Italy, to their credit, did a lot of good things to disrupt the All Blacks' pattern of play and their combinations. So at half time, and looking at the 3 games, Ireland and South Africa definitely were the better teams, and I'd probably give it to South Africa in terms of looking the best, despite Ireland scoring 28 points in the first half. I just thought that there wasn't as much competition from Fiji as what South Africa saw from Wales at the back end of the first half. And South Africa started off that first half with such intensity and accuracy, and that really was impressive for that first 25 or 30 minutes of the game. Don't take anything away from Ireland though. They did put those points on the board, and they had this game wrapped up by half time. I think the thing that let me down for Ireland in that first half was Prendergast's tackle, or non-tackle we should say. That took the shine off Ireland's performance a little bit for me in that first half. And because South Africa didn't have any yellow cards in their first half, I'd slightly say that they were the better team out of the top 3 in this particular instance. But New Zealand were poor in the first half against Italy. They were scrambling for plays, and once again on attack, their inside backs did not look good. Anton Leonard-Brown and also Rieko Ioane were not making their combinations work. And how many times did we see Rieko Ioane getting the ball off a short pass and then being tackled straight away and not being able to get the ball back? And that we've been playing that record the whole year as far as Rieko Ioane goes on attack for the All Blacks. And that's why I've been saying in nearly every video I've made about the All Blacks that he is not the man at number 13. If he's going to be in this New Zealand team, I'd like to see him back on the wing, or maybe on the bench for the All Blacks. So going into the second half of these three games, it was going to be interesting to see who could keep up the intensity, given that they had very, very big leads in the cases of Ireland and also South Africa. Plus the benches had to come on. Ireland, through Andy Farrell, were trying a number of new players in this particular game and giving them the opportunity. Was this going to disrupt the pattern of their particular play, or were they going to get better in the second half? Well, talking about the Ireland versus Fiji game, I thought Ireland started to get better and better in the second half. No thanks to Fiji though. Once again, we saw the penalty count being absolutely huge from Fiji, and this gave Ireland the emphasis to go forward and do a lot of good things through their forwards. But we saw Bundy Aki score a good try in the second half for Ireland, and we also saw Mac Hansen go over for his second try. Callagher went over for a good try, and Doris had got a first half try as well and was playing very, very good in this game for Ireland. So I thought in the second half, Ireland actually started getting better in terms of their performance. They started looking more expansive, more dangerous, as Fiji got more tired, as we would expect from this team, and as their substitutes came on, this made Ireland look better and better as the game went on. We ended up seeing Sam Prendergast have a pretty good game when it came to touches. He had a lot of touches on the ball, he was distributing the ball well, and he just got that ability to hold up the pass a little bit, put his outside player through a gap, or give them a good opportunity to get over the gain line. And that's what I like about Sam Prendergast's play. He's got to put that shoulder away going into players' heads, and there's no doubt about it, he's going to learn from that experience and be a very, very good player into the future. So for me, Ireland came home strongly in the second half. In addition to their 28 points in the first half, they were able to score 24 more in the second half. So for me, this is a sign of a good team that's continuing the momentum after half time and being able to put their opposition well and truly away. So Ireland, I thought, ended up playing that game very well in the end. Now, South Africa had scored 26 points in the first half against Wales. They got a further 19 in the second half. But I must say that I thought South Africa's play went off the boil a little bit in the second half, particularly when their substitutes came on. Just seemed to be missing some of the combinations here and there. They were maybe trying to go for too much. Wales came back, also scored a good try through Rio Dyer in the second half that was converted. So Wales ended up scoring more points in the second half than they did in the first half. Now, you could say it's difficult for teams when they have such a big lead at half-time to go on and really continue that momentum and adrenaline in the second half. But South Africa were able to put 45 points on against Wales this weekend, and it was a good performance. I was particularly impressed with South Africa in that first 30 minutes of this game. They were absolutely accurate, on point, and I think against any team in the world, they would have had trouble dealing with the intensity of the South Africans. Their forwards were very, very good. We saw Cameron Hanekom come on in the second half and played okay, didn't do anything outstanding. As I would say from the rest of the South African team, there weren't really many superstars in the second half for me. But we did see good runs again from Kurt-Lee Arendse. We saw Colby doing his normal thing, getting involved, making some dangerous runs through open play and setting up South Africa for a very, very good win in this game. And then back in Turin for the All Blacks versus Italy second half. Well, the All Blacks ended up scoring 12 points to 5 in the second half, and things didn't get any better as far as I was concerned in the All Blacks. It was a very stop-start kind of game from them. They were very poor when it came to their attacking options. They didn't look like they really had a plan. And as I said earlier, one of the problems I see with this All Black backline throughout the season is they don't really have any combinations that are getting them through the defensive line of the opposition. Unless we see some individual brilliance from the likes of Will Jordan, Cam Roigard or Beauden Barrett, even Damien McKenzie, that to me seems to be what the All Blacks are relying on for them to get through the opposition line. We're not seeing good backline moves from set pieces where the All Blacks are putting their opposition under a lot of pressure time and time again. Yes, they do one every now and again, but it's not enough for me in terms of giving their opposition a hard time through the defensive line. So I think that's something that really needs to work on. For me this year so far, and it showed again in this game, the All Black forwards have been carrying this All Black team. I think the forwards have grown over the year, whereas the backline has become very stagnant. And really, it's only been since Cam Roygaard's come back in, starting at number 9, that we've seen any penetration at all. TJ Perenara and Sam Cane getting their ceremonial send-offs in this game. I don't know whether that's a good thing to do for players or not, but I think Sam Cane has absolutely deserved it. He's played well this year, and he had another good game without being super brilliant in this game against Italy. Remember, there's a reason why TJ Perenara has only started 29 times for the All Blacks out of 88 games, and that's because the coaches have always seen him as a second option when it comes to halfback. And once again, when he came in on this game, there was nothing really outstanding from TJ Perenara. So yeah, the All Blacks won this one 29 points to 11. It was a very, very scrappy game, probably one of their worst of the year, and it was an interesting bookend to end the All Blacks season. After that very close game against England to start the season this year, we had a very scrappy game to end it, and it probably sums up the All Blacks year. I will be making a video shortly about the All Blacks year, what I think about some of the positional things that have happened, and I'll also welcome your opinions on that as well in this particular video. So for me, out of the top 3 ranked teams in World Rugby at the moment over the weekend, I think South Africa and Ireland were definitely a long way ahead of New Zealand when it came to their overall performance. Ireland scored more points than their oppositions, and on that basis I would probably give them the best team out of the top 3 this weekend, because they did have a good second half performance against Fiji in Dublin. Whereas I thought South Africa just fell away a little bit against Wales at different times in that second half. And whether that be Wales finding a little bit of momentum or South Africa just struggling a little bit with some of their combinations, that's probably what gave Ireland the tip for me. I am being pretty picky when it comes to that, because South Africa, of course, played very well to beat Wales by 45 points to 12. So for me this weekend, New Zealand came a distant third out of the 3 top teams in terms of doing this particular comparison. I thought they were way behind Ireland and South Africa in terms of their overall performance. And there's a lot of work to do, I think, for Scott Robertson before the All Blacks kick off their campaign in 2025. There you go. Let me know in the comments what you thought about these 3 teams in the weekend and their overall performance. Did you think Ireland played better than South Africa, or did you think South Africa played better than Ireland? And do you agree with me that New Zealand was probably the 3rd pick out of those 3 particular teams? I'd like to know your thoughts and opinions. Okay, that's it for this video. Coming back with some plenty more to talk about after this weekend's round of autumn international games. We've got 1 game left in this year's series, and that's going to be between Ireland and Australia, to be played at the Aviva Stadium next weekend. That's going to be a cracker, absolutely. And I'll see you all again very soon right here on Inside Rugby with Mark. Until next time, stay well, stay safe, keep enjoying your rugby across the world, everyone. And it's time to say adios from beautiful Cancun in Mexico. Bye for now.